Imagine this point: two men face the same chaos point. One tightens his grip on power. The other loosens his grip on desire. Only one survives. The question is, which one should you become? We love stability, we crave it. We build our lives around routines, morals, and rules that make the world feel predictable. But here's the uncomfortable truth psychology keeps revealing again and again: stability is a luxury, available only when nothing is trying to take from you. The moment pressure enters the room, kindness starts getting expensive. And that's where Machiavelli and Stoicism collide. On one side, Machiavelli, cold, sharp, brutally observant. He didn't theorize from comfort. He studied human behavior under stress, fear, ambition. He believed that morality collapses when survival is at stake. Not because people are evil, but because incentives changed. On the other side, Stoicism, calm, controlled, internally unshakable. It teaches that the world can burn, but your inner world must remain untouched. Control what you can, release what you can't. Sounds noble, almost heroic. But here's the tension no one talks about. What happens when the threat isn't internal but external? When someone isn't attacking your emotions, but your position, your livelihood, your future? Psychology tells us humans don't behave the same under threat. Our moral compass doesn't break, it bends. And Machiavelli understood this centuries before modern behavioral science. He watched it happen in real time. A ruler takes control of a violent, lawless region, crime everywhere, loyalty nowhere. The people don't respect kindness. They exploit it, so the ruler does something shocking, something efficient, something terrifying, and suddenly, order appears. Not because people became good, but because fear rewired their behavior. This is where Machiavelli drops his most dangerous idea. A leader who tries to be good in a world of bad actors doesn't become a martyr, he becomes a victim. Now pause. Because Stoicism would argue the opposite. Stoics say your peace should never depend on the behavior of others. That reacting with force corrupts the soul. That external outcomes are irrelevant compared to internal discipline. And here's the psychological paradox: both philosophies work, but only in different environments. Stoicism works best when you cannot change the system. Machiavelli works best when you are the system, or trying to survive within one. So what happens when you apply Stoicism in a Machiavellian world? You become calm and crushed. What happens when you apply Machiavelli everywhere? You become powerful and empty. This is the fork in the road, and most people choose blindly. They preach Stoicism while being exploited. Or practice Machiavellian tactics without understanding the cost. And the next part, we're going to dissect exactly where Stoicism fails under real-world pressure, and why Machiavelli believed restraint without power is just disguised helplessness. But be warned, once you see the psychological line between inner control and external dominance, you can't unsee it. Calm looks powerful, until someone decides to take advantage of it. And that's exactly where Stoicism starts to crack. Stoicism teaches mastery of the self. Control your reactions. Detach from outcomes. Accept what you cannot change. Psychologically, this is brilliant, for anxiety, grief, emotional chaos. Modern therapy borrows heavily from Stoic principles for a reason: it stabilizes the mind. But here's the problem no Stoic quote prepares you for. Not all threats are emotional. Some are strategic. A rival undermining you at work. A competitor exploiting your restraint. A manipulative person testing how far they can push without consequences. In these moments, emotional calm isn't enough. Because the threat doesn't care how peaceful you feel inside. Machiavelli understood this dark asymmetry of human behavior. He noticed something brutal but true. People don't respond to virtue the same way they respond to consequences. From a psychological standpoint, fear and reward shape behavior faster than ideals. This isn't philosophy. It's conditioning. That's why Machiavelli didn't admire cruelty for its own sake. He admired decisive force, used once, clearly and strategically. Enough to reset the environment. Stoicism says, endure. Machiavelli says, intervene. Now here's where things get uncomfortable. Stoicism assumes the world is largely indifferent. Machiavelli assumes the world is competitive. Those assumptions create entirely different survival strategies. But if the world is indifferent, detachment protects you. If the world is competitive, detachment exposes you. Psychology backs this up. In cooperative environments, prosocial behavior thrives. In zero-sum environments, assertiveness dominates. Apply the wrong strategy to the wrong environment, and you lose. This is why Machiavelli warned against being good without power. Goodness without leverage isn't morality. It's vulnerability. And here's the twist most people miss. Machiavelli wasn't anti-virtue, he was anti-naivety. He believed a leader, or any individual, must appear virtuous, while retaining the capacity to act otherwise when reality demands it. From a psychological lens, this is cognitive flexibility. The ability to switch strategies based on context. Not rigid morality. Adaptive morality. Stoicism, when taken to extremes, becomes rigidity. I will not react. I will not interfere. I will remain above it. But predators love rigid systems. Because rigid systems are predictable, and predictability is exploitable. This is why hyper-stoic individuals often become silent reservoirs for resentment. They suppress action in the name of peace, until the pressure leaks out sideways: burnout, passive aggression, self-sabotage. Machiavelli would call that weakness disguised as virtue. But here's the trap on the other side. Pure Machiavellianism corrodes trust. Constant calculation. Endless suspicion. Relationships. Reduced to leverage and utility. Psychologically, that creates isolation. Paranoia. Anxiety disguised as controlled. So now we're staring at the real dilemma. Stoicism without power leads to quiet defeat. Machiavelli without restraint leads to hollow dominance. The real question isn't which philosophy is right, it's when each philosophy should be used. Because the most dangerous person isn't the cruel one, or the calm one. It's the person who knows when to be both. In the final part, we're going to uncover the hybrid mindset, the psychological framework that lets you stay internally unshaken, while being externally unignorable. And once you understand this balance, you'll stop asking which one should you follow, and start asking a much more powerful question. The most dangerous mind isn't ruthless, and it isn't peaceful, that it's selectively both. Why now? The tension should be clear. Stoicism protects your inner world. Machiavelli protects your outer position. Psychology says you need both, applied with precision. Here's the synthesis no one spells out. Stoicism is internal strategy. Machiavelli is external strategy. Confuse the two, and you either break inside or lose outside. The psychologically resilient individual doesn't choose a side. They compartmentalize. Inside, they practice stoicism. They regulate emotion. They don't panic under pressure. They don't let insults hijack behavior. This creates clarity, the raw material of good decisions. But outwardly, they understand power dynamics. They set boundaries early. They respond to threats decisively. They allow consequences to teach where words fail. This isn't hypocrisy, that it's psychological literacy. Machiavelli warned that people judge by results, not intentions. Stoics warned that your worth isn't defined by outcomes. Put together, you get something rare: action without emotional contamination. This is the mindset of elite operators, effective leaders, and psychologically grounded individuals. They don't seek conflict, but they don't avoid it either. They don't explode emotionally, but they don't suppress action. When challenged, they don't react, they respond. Calmly, strategically, decisively. Here's the final insight. Most people fail because they apply one philosophy universally. They turn Stoicism into passivity or Machiavelli into paranoia. But psychology shows human behavior is contextual. What works in one environment collapses in another. So the real rule is this: be Stoic in emotion, be Machiavellian in structure. Control what happens inside. You shape what happens around you. If someone insults you, Stoicism keeps you centered. If someone threatens your position, Machiavelli reminds you to act. This balance creates something powerful: inner peace without external weakness, authority without emotional volatility. And once people sense that combination, something changes. They don't test you as much. They don't mistake your calm for compliance. They don't confuse your kindness for helplessness. That's the psychological edge. Which one should you follow, Machiavelli or Stoicism? Neither. You integrate them. Because the world doesn't reward purity of philosophy, it rewards adaptability. And the moment you stop asking, which one is morally superior, and start asking, what does this situation actually require? That's the moment you stop being reactive, and start being dangerous in the quietest way possible.